our next conversation is about the autumn statement and the NHS. Now, Prem mentioned it a bit. Dr. Bob Gill's come to speak on this. How you doing, Bob?
Great, Crispin.
Now, I just want to play you a clip because it's again, if you want to turn away and you don't want to watch it, just maybe do that. It's Wes Streeting on LBC a bit.
It's not just the policies he's swiping. I mean, he was talking about the importance of getting much greater efficiencies out of the NHS. And I could see people on your side of the chamber beginning to roll their eyes and grumble at that. And then he announced that Patricia Hewitt, who was a former, of course, Labour Secretary of State for Health, was going to be helping him with that. I thought that was a pretty shrewd move. Did you have a word with Patricia and say, what are you doing?
No, not at all. I'm delighted. And do you know what it tells us, Andrew, is that after 12 years of Conservative government, when it comes to big challenges facing our country, who do they turn to provide the answers? Labour people. Because when we were last in government, we delivered the lowest waiting times and the highest patient satisfaction in the history of the NHS. So I'm not surprised that Jeremy Hunt, having been the longest serving health secretary under the Conservatives, is looking back to Labour, because we didn't leave the NHS in the mess that it is in today.
Now, I just want to. I'm sorry about that for anyone watching it. You had to see that clip, but I thought it was interesting that the efficiencies are kind of welcomed. What does efficiency mean other than cuts? It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So efficiency depends who you're talking about. The efficiency our political class want to deliver is the efficient extraction of wealth out of the tax base. That's the efficiency Wes Streeting is signed up to. That's the efficiency we've been hearing from every administration in my adult lifetime, which is all about redirecting wealth away from the poor, away from public services, into the pockets and the bank accounts of the rich. That is what they're very efficient at. If you look at the NHS, the cost of administrating and managing the NHS has mushroomed. From Thatcher's time, it was 4%. The most efficient system in the world because you didn't have a parallel market bureaucracy. And now estimates are running about 20%. So every time a neoliberal politician talks about efficiency, they make the NHS less efficient, but they extract more profit.
And I was a bit taken aback that Jeremy Hunt would suggest that an ex-Labour health secretary should come in and help him to find about this efficiency and make these efficiencies. But Patricia Hewitt is not just an ex-Labour Secretary of State for Health. She's also been quite involved within the private sector, hasn't she?
Absolutely. So when she took over in 2005, she carried on what her predecessors had done. The last health secretary we've had who actually believed in the NHS was Frank Dobson. When he was shoved to the side in the London mayor race in 2000, we had Alan Milburn, who went on through the revolving door into the private sector. We had Peter Reid, and then we had Hewitt. And Hewitt's main achievement was to attempt to privatize community health services, to hand over and outsource all those services to the private sector. The Labour Party, in the first time in the history of the NHS, outsourced clinical care, and Patricia Hewitt accelerated that process. While she was still an MP, she went on to take board directorships in Sinvan, who are a private equity firm that bought out Bupa hospitals. She also took on a directorship within Alliance Boots, who are benefiting quite handsomely and offshore their profits, avoiding to pay tax to sustain our country, and a directorship in BT. So she was earning, on top of her MP's wage, £180,000 for doing a few days' work for these private companies that happened to benefit from the policies that she promoted. Now, some people might call this corruption. That is what she did in office. Later on, before she stepped down from Parliament, she was caught up in the Telegraph expose on cash for the MP's expenses scandal, and then she was hoodwinked into a Channel 4 trap where she agreed to be paid £3,000 per day to represent the interests of a fictitious private corporation. So that is the qualifications of Patricia Hewitt. She's ideally suited to help Jeremy Hunt, who, when he was in office in the NHS, managed to trash the junior doctors' contracts, abolish the student nurses' bursary, and ignored pandemic preparedness, which has contributed to the 200,000 deaths that we have suffered. These are sociopaths and psychopaths. They're all in the same club. Unfortunately, none of us are in their club. They are representing their own interests. These are careerist politicians, the worst of the worst. None of them has a word or an action that will help one jot the suffering of the people that their policies actually set up, with the deregulation of the financial industry, the bailout of the banks. We are all paying a human cost and a societal cost for these failed neoliberal policies, and all they can think of is doubling down on their insanity. That's where we are.
Wow. I mean, I was a bit taken aback. I didn't see that clip until today, Wes Streeting, that the fact that he didn't even qualify in any way that she might not be quite suitable because of what you'd mentioned before. I mean, he was saying how fantastic she was.
Well,
doesn't look good for it doesn't look good for Wes Streeting being a possible health secretary, does it?
Well, it doesn't look good for the people who believe that he might do the right thing. I am in no way deluded by Labour doing the right thing for the people. I have given up on Labour. They are toxic. They've provided cover for every failed policy that this administration has put in. They provided cover for all the money that was hemorrhaged out into the private sector during the pandemic response. But one more issue on Patricia Hewitt. What she must be remembered for, what she succeeded in, was co-opting the health unions. In 2006, she signed up something called the Social Partnership Forum, which brought in the health unions, Unite, Unison, GMB, and the BMA, who, behind closed doors, have agreed to allow the agenda of privatization continue. And in 2021, they formed what's called the Transition Partnership Group, which will help the new public-private partnerships, integrated care systems, which are the American managed care for-profit system. The unions have signed up to that. And that is Patricia Hewitt's achievement in the privatization. That's what she's done. So if anybody here is a member of a health union, they need to, I'm going to put 2 links in the comment, read those links, because your unions, with the strikes coming up, expect and be prepared for these unions to betray you, because they have signed up to the privatization. Wake up, folks. We're being sold out left, right, and center.